Thanks for coming along. I'm going to go through the Core 54. All my Patreon family members, you will have received that by email. Core 54. It's based on an interesting discovery I made with Solsai's books and teaching. Solsai's three most famous books were the What is Karate, This is Karate, and Advanced Karate. And I went through these three books fairly carefully, took as much time as I could, and I counted up all the techniques that were presented. If the same technique was presented more than once, I only counted it once. So obviously there might be some variation in the number of techniques presented. But overall, I counted a total of 117 unique techniques presented in those three books. What is Karate presented 36, This is Karate 34, and Advanced Karate 47 unique techniques. Obviously, the same technique was presented multiple times in the different books. Now, what was most interesting was a breakdown in terms of ranges 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now, range 1, of course, is kick range. Range 2 is the punch range. Range 3 is the headbutt elbow range. Range 4 is the stand-up grapple range, and range 5 is the ground range. And of course, Kyokushin is primarily known for the knockdown tournaments. And as a result, you even have some Kyokushin dojos who do nothing but prepare for those tournaments. And for some, that makes a lot of sense because, you know, in some countries, winning these tournaments is really important. If they do very well in the sporting aspect, it allows them to get funding from the government. And in some countries, the top Kyokushin representatives are also recognized by the Olympic Committee, even though Kyokushin isn't in the Olympics. So I understand why the sporting aspect is very important. And even when I grew up, that was the main thing that you're looking for. You know, once they introduced tournaments, that was your primary go-to. And that's a fair call. When you're in your late teens, early 20s, mid-20s, late 20s, you should be whipping the body and you should be challenging yourself against other non-compliant, strong opponents to test your technique. Muscles are interesting. The brain is the same. Muscles are the same. If you want skill, if you want the mind, if you want technique, shingi, tai, and if you want the body to perform well under pressure, it has to be exercised. A muscle gets stronger when it's used and when it's taken just outside of its comfort zone so that it gets stronger. Well, the mind is the same. You know, the notion that life is unfair, or the notion that you should be able to get away with life without the challenges is kind of silly, because you think about it, what makes you strong in karate are the challenges, the physical confrontations in training and in kumite, and even the confrontation of having to punch out more push-ups, sit-ups, squats than you normally would. That is what makes training valuable, is the constant exercising. And the mind is the same. You know, what makes your habits strong is the constant need to reinforce those habits. But let's have a look at this breakdown. This is very interesting. The sporting aspect arguably is range 1 and 2, the kicks and punches. There's a few elbows in there, but very, very rare. They're probably not even represented very commonly. Of all the techniques you see in tournaments, elbows might represent 1%. So generally speaking, for all intents and purposes, tournament techniques represent range 1 and 2. And of those, out of 117 techniques, only 33, or not even 30%, were presented by Solsai in his books. So less than 30% of what Solsai taught is applicable to tournament fighting, to the sporting aspect of Kyokushin. Range 3, the headbutt elbow range, was another 7%. Range 4, and this is where it's really interesting, As you know, grabbing and throwing are not allowed in tournaments. Yet in Soul Size books, the stand-up grapple range, so dealing with the stand-up grapple, controlling, takedowns, throws, represents 67 of the 117 techniques. So that's 57%, or nearly 60% of all the techniques that Solsai taught were in the stand-up grapple range 4. And that's really interesting, because I know as I grew up through training, we didn't deal a lot with that, maybe just 10% of our training or so, because my instructor Frank was a jiu-jitsu black belt, a Japanese traditional jiu-jitsu black belt. So for the beginners in the dojo, you focused a lot on that range. But after that, not so much was done. And then range 5, the ground range, was 8% of what Solsai taught in his books. So even the ground range, which no one in Kyokushin really addresses, 8% of the techniques that Solsai taught in his books were on the ground. So that's a total of 72% of the techniques that Solsai taught were techniques that aren't allowed in tournaments. And I find that really fascinating. So that analysis is really interesting to keep in your mind when you're training and when we look at the Core 54. Now let's address the Core 54. I'll read it. What follows are the skills and training principles, about 20% of the primary skills of Kyokushin, that bring about 80% of everything you'll ever use. So remember that when you're wondering what to do, you've got to try and address it using the Pareto principle, or the 80-20 rule. In other words, 20% of what you do provides 80% of what you'll use. The first thing is the 5 stances. Kyokushin has about 16 stances, but 5 of them provide the 80-20. That is Sanshin, Zen Kutsudachi, Kokutsudachi, Kibadachi, and Kumite Dachi, or default position, what we call default position. Sanshin Dachi, I say Sanshin Dachi is the mobile fighting stance, and Kumite Dachi, or the default position, is the mobile Sanshin stance. So they're in many respects identical. The way you hold your feet in Sanshin and the way you hold your feet in a fighting stance are very, very similar. So those 5 stances need to be mastered and need to be focused on. And of all the training that you do, you'll find that most of it is in the Sanshin Dachi, Zen Kutsudachi, Kokutsudachi, Kibadachi, and Kumite Dachi. The other stances are really just practiced for the sake of practicing, or they're done in kata. The 5 footwork patterns, which we did last live session, I skipped last week, of course, because I was busy moving, but the 5 footwork patterns, the left and right split is 1, the sabaki, or circular motion, is 2, oeashi, or the basic stepping motion, or kuriashi, or the half and full shuffles, and the kosaho, or the switches. Okay, of course we have fumiashi, which is the normal step through. Okay, but remember, this is the Core 54, this is the 80-20. And even though most of our kata training involves that fumiashi, step through, the fumiashi is not as common in kumite. So that's why I don't include it in the Core 54. So the 5 footwork patterns, the left and right split, the left and right circular motion, sabaki, the basic stepping, oiashi, which is forward and back, left and right, or kuriashi, which is the half shuffle and the full shuffle, and kosaho, which is the switch. And if you're not too sure of those, go back and check the live stream from a couple of weeks ago. Okay, now, so that's 10. That's the first 10. 5 stances, 5 footwork patterns. Next, we have 8 hand techniques. Now, as you know from the live streams, we have back fists, knife hands, we have palm heels, we have all these flowing motions. I don't include them in the Core 54 because, from a training perspective, they take a little bit of time and experience. So the 8 hand techniques that I do include are the front lead. So that's the front jab to the face and to the body. The hook punch, the uppercut. So we're going straight, hook, uppercut. That's 3. The rip to the body, 4. the backhand cross, 5, and also to the body as well. The overhand, which is very different and delivered differently to the right, the straight right cross. Kagiski. So what's the difference between a rip and a kagiski? A rip generally comes off the top hand, of the front hand to the liver, if you're left-handed. A kagiski is a rip with the back hand, and the technique is different, and you need to master that. And of course, the 8th technique is the elbow. So they're the 8 techniques: front hand jab, front hand lead, the hook, the uppercut, the rip to the liver, the backhand right cross, the backhand overhand, the kagiski, which is slightly different to the rip. It's a hooking punch to the body, and the elbow technique. They're the 8 hand techniques. 5 stances, 5 footwork patterns, and 8 hand techniques. Remember, this is 80-20. It doesn't mean they're the only ones. What I mean by all this is, if you spend most of your time focused on those 8 punches, it will provide pretty well all of what you ever need. Okay, now the 8 kicks: front kick, maegeri, that's oshikomi maegeri and maegeri. So snap front kick and push front kick. Mawashi geri to the leg, mawashi geri to the body, and mawashi geri to the head or neck. I treat those as 3 different kicks simply because the technique differs and the setup differs. And you have to learn the different distance, angle, setup, and technique for all 3. It's really important. Okay, so we have the front kick, snap, and pushing. Mawashi to the leg, mawashi to the head, body, mawashi to the head. The next one is the ushiro geri, the straight back kick, and then the ushiro mawashi geri, or the spin back kick, the knee kick, and the axe kick. Now, they are the 8 kicks, which if you concentrate on those 8 kicks and the skills required in them, they will provide the foundation of pretty well all the technique, the kicking techniques. Now, things like the hook kick and the different ways to deliver the step-up roundhouse or the step switch roundhouse, or even the domawashi jumping back kick and so on, all of those are over and above. You know, as you know, one of my students, Gary O'Neill, used to use the domawashi a lot, the jumping spin back kick. He used it to a lot of success, but he could only do that because he understood how to use these 8 kicks first. If he didn't understand those, not just how to do them, but how to defend against them, then nothing else would have worked. Okay, so that's 5 stances, 5 footwork patterns, 8 hand techniques, 8 kick techniques. So that's 26 techniques so far out of the 54. Okay, the next is the 16 key defenses against those 8 hands and 8 kicks. So what that means is, we know how to throw a lead jab, but if you don't know how to defend the lead jab, then you're in trouble. We know how to throw the right cross, but if you don't know how to cover the right cross, then you're in trouble. So the key to any high skill level is being able to defend strongly and counter strongly. So you have to know the 8 hand techniques, know the 8 kicks, and know the 16 fundamental shapes and defenses against them. So what that means is, for example, if your default position is correct, being able to block the head kick with coxcomb, being able to block the body kick with the check, being able to block the leg kick with the thigh kick check is really vital. The reason those fundamental defensive shapes and skills are important is because they minimize your defensive requirement. They allow you to defend optimally with minimal work. That's why it's 80-20. All it takes is a little bit of movement to defend against 80% of what you'll ever face. And that's really, really important. Okay, so 8 kicks, 8 punches, 5 stances, 5 footwork patterns, and 16 key defenses against, in other words, the defensive shapes against those 16 attacks. Okay, so that's a total of 42 skills. With the 42 skills come 12 supports. And those 12 support fundamentals are 4 somatics, flexibility, speed, strength, and cardiovascular endurance. They're the generally accepted 4 somatics of the human body. Somatic simply means a physical property, a physical. So when you talk about someone's somatotype, that's the body shape type. So there's generally 4 somatics: speed, cardiovascular endurance, strength, and stamina. Flexibility. So flexibility, cardiovascular endurance, strength, speed, or suppleness, stamina, speed, strength. They're the 4 main somatics. Okay. Then I know there's a 5th one. I call it sturdiness. In other words, the body's ability to take heavy, heavy punishment is vital. You can't expect, you can't expect to be able to dominate someone in an incredibly physically challenging confrontation if you just aren't strong enough to take strong blows to your body and your mind, really. So with that in mind, the 5th somatic, or sturdiness, I break down into 5 impact resilience conditioning drills. And once you understand these 5 drills, they give you an incredible resilience in your body. The first one is 2-man ab conditioning drills. Second one is the pummel. And today I don't have a partner, but I'm going to go through these as soon as I have an opportunity to do a live stream with another partner. So we have the ab conditioning, 2-man ab conditioning, 2-man pummel drills, 2-man thigh conditioning drills, shin conditioning, which you do on the sandbags. You have to condition your shins, especially in Kyokushin tournaments. And it may not simply be so that you can kick hard. It may also be so that when people block your shin kicks, your shins aren't damaged. A world tournament that goes for 3 days, where you're fighting non-stop over 3 days, your resilience and your body's ability to take heavy-duty punishment will determine your ability to continue on through the rounds. Many, many times over the years, I've seen guys who are on a roll, fighting really well, but just have to withdraw because of injury. So 5 impact resilience drills: 2-man ab conditioning, 2-man pummels, and if you're not sure what a pummel is, I'll demonstrate that next opportunity I have with a partner. 2-man thigh conditioning drills, sandbag shin conditioning, and the 5th one is hand conditioning on the sandbags, the makiwara or trees. So that's the 42 plus 4 somatics. That's 46, plus the 5 body resilience drills. Now, to finish off, there are 3 training keys which I place a lot of importance to. The first one is get in the habit of using a logbook. Get in the habit of using a logbook simply because it organizes your training. It allows you to train short-term, long-term, medium-term with a plan, and nothing beats training with a good plan. Okay, so nothing beats training to a plan. And I don't just mean, well, I train Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, whatever. What I mean is you have to set skill targets and approach mastery of those skill targets in a logical way. And that's where using the logbook comes from, or leads to, actually. The second of the 3 training keys is developing your own primary go-to combinations that suit you. Yogananda, my yoga teacher, says that the best diet is any diet that suits your own constitution. And karate is the same. The best karate is any karate that suits your own mindset, physical attributes, capabilities. So you have to develop your own primary go-to combinations that suit you. And that's what makes karate unique, particularly when you get up to around brown belt level. You become quite creative, and moving towards black belt, you should be creative. You should see it in the 40 man or in however many rounds you do for Shodan. You'll see a difference in different players. Some guys will be snap kickers, some guys will be power kickers, some guys won't even throw a kick the whole day. They'll just knock guys out with their body punches. Some guys can mix it up like nuts. That's what having that go-to Sensei Wally Schnellbelt was fantastic like that. He was a lightweight. He was a heavyweight that moved like a lightweight, and he could knock guys out with kicks. And if he was facing a kicker, he'd get inside and knock him out with body punches. He just had developed that all-round style which suited his own physicality and mentality really well. So that's the second of the three training keys. You have to develop your own primary go-to combinations that suit you. And the third of all, and this is really important, it's one of the core 54, is daily introspection. What does that mean? It means at night time you just spend a few minutes thinking, how did I do today? Did I behave well? Did I do something wrong? Did I slack off in training? Did I lose focus? Did I start to get short-tempered with the little old lady in the white car who cut me off in traffic? So daily introspection includes the three quintessential questions, which you know. What did I do well today? What didn't I do well today? And what am I going to do about it tomorrow? That's really important. Plus, I think meditation. Meditation is really important simply because it allows you to equilibrate the mind. It allows you to get control over the mind. It's very hard to bring control to the mind without meditation. For some reason, people think meditation is just sitting there listening to nice music or sitting there thinking of nothing. It's none of that at all. It's actually deep, deep, deep concentration on a single thing, mainly the breath, and that deep concentration is what equilibrates the mind. So there you have it. 5 stances, 5 footwork patterns, 8 punches, 8 kicks, and 16 defenses against those 8 punches and kicks. That's 42 core skills. The 12 supports, 4 somatics, work on your flexibility, work on your speed, work on your strength, work on your cardiovascular endurance. Okay, most people don't work on their flexibility enough. They just do what they do in the dojo, but of course there's not enough time. You should be doing a lot more than that. Okay, so you got those 4 somatics, so that's 46. Then you add 5 body conditioning drills to make it 51. Ab conditioning, 2-man ab conditioning, 2-man pummels, thigh conditioning, 2-man thigh conditioning, sandbag shin conditioning, and sandbag or makiwara hand conditioning. And those, of course, are a session in themselves, each of those, which we'll get to eventually. And then that's 51, and the final 3 to make up the core 54 are the 3 training keys. 1, get in the habit of using a logbook and using it well, and don't wait. Always take it to training. Always be there to record what you did. And even the act of writing it down puts it in your brain. And also what it does is reveals shortcomings in your understanding of the technique. So it allows you then to question your instructor, or if you don't have an instructor, if you are the instructor, it allows you then to question your own training. Okay, so use a logbook, develop your own primary go-to karate. You have to make your karate your unique style of karate. And 3, daily introspection. Spend 9 to 12 minutes every night sitting there quietly before you go to bed, thinking about your day. Did you behave well? Did you behave properly at all? Did you exercise? Remember, your brain and your attitude is a muscle just the same as your biceps and thighs. And if you want your muscles to get strong, you have to exercise them. Well, it's the same as your habits and your attitude and your values. They have to be exercised. So you challenge yourself daily through introspection. And of course, you ask the quintessential questions in training. What did I do well? What didn't I do well? And what am I going to do about it? And there you have it. That's your core 54. In basics, I've just got this written. In basics, be present. So also I used to say, 自分のどこで相手のどこをどうやって打つ、どうやって蹴る, which means know what you're hitting with, where you're hitting to, and how you're hitting. Know what you're hitting with, where you're hitting to, and how you're hitting. Do your kihon with deep, deep concentration, and you'll find that, some people after many years think that the kihon starts to get boring. But if you concentrate deeply and ki loudly, and keep your enthusiasm tireless, that makes a big, big difference. So there you have it. That's your core 54. I said today it was going to be short. Gaz, good to see you, man. Those core 54 are really, really valuable. Clearly, between now and then, there's a lot of time. So you could start to allow that time to lose usefulness. But time's your primary resource. You have to use it very well. And the best way to use it is with a logbook. There's no doubt about it. Mike, the mental training involved in physical conditioning is also a great value and should not be underestimated. Yes, you're right. And this is what I mean by practicing kihon with loud ki and deep, deep concentration, where you're 100% focused on everything you're doing, because that's where karate brings you. In some people call it a form of moving meditation, and if that idea works for you, fantastic. But you can't separate the body and mind. So deeply concentrated physical training will strengthen the mind. Guys, I hope you got something out of that. That core 54 I love. I just absolutely love, and it's given us a fantastic foundation for training at any time, anywhere. If you need to take a class, or if you're asked to take a class, you simply choose something out of the core 54 and focus on that, and you will never go wrong. It really, really works. Okay, so there you have it, guys. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for joining me. And I look forward to seeing you in a week.